Man, feel bad for my buddy. Got such bad luck turkey hunting in this particular property. I guess the last few years they'd see like 50, 75 turkeys gobbling all over the place. See 50 over there and 10 over there. And this year there's been, I think we've heard 2 turkeys gobble here. It feels so bad for them. My friends, they're like turkey freaks. Me, I just like having fun. So it's not overly upsetting for me. I just feel frustrated I can't make it happen for them. We just basically case the whole place and barely any tracks either. It's kind of weird. Me not being from here, and usually I like to get to the bottom of things, but I don't know what happened. I don't know where they are. Oh well. Oh well. But anyway. Yeah, so today we're going to that YO Ranch. I guess there's a big auction there. All sorts of crazy stuff. All they're telling me is wait till you see what goes on there. Meaning crazy taxidermy auctions and animals and stuff. And I guess we darted and loaded a couple of white bison into the horse trailer and delivered them there yesterday. So we got there kind of early and I had a look around. The place is huge. It's got a 7.5 mile long driveway. And saw a couple baby camels there, affectionate little things at the auction, and all sorts of crazy stuff. Texas is definitely its own country, isn't it? It's different. I love it, Texas. I love it everywhere, really. Yeah. Nobody's brought up any of our, I don't even like to call it paranormal. Nobody seems to be too interested in bringing up the real world topics with me, which is fine by me. Fine by me, but if they want to, of course I'll engage and talk about it, but if they don't, all good with me. I don't need to. It doesn't make sense to me to bring it up to people that don't have an interest. But anyway, babbling. This is a cool spot right here, all these rock formations. So, I think everybody's so tired from getting up at 4:30 in the morning and then socializing till later at this ranch with these people who are so kind, so cool people. But my buddy's, he goes, you could do a video for YouTube? I'm like, oh, maybe later on. He goes, why don't you do it right here in these rocks? I need a nap. I'm like, okay, go have a nap. Here we go. Well, let's listen to what's up, what's new, what's going down. Shall we? Now there's somebody here on the channel who keeps sending me comments from the comment section. There's a whole bunch here, I guess, since I've been in Texas. And I haven't read them, but we're gonna have a look, all right, and see how this goes. And get a feel for what's going on down here around me or near me or whatever. So these are all comments, all right, you guys? Oh, this is from the video titled, I am west of Austin, Texas, who's had an experience near here. So here we go. Bob Deering said, Steve, you're in the Dogman Triangle. Houston to San Antonio to Dallas. Been hunting over there close to 30 years ago, but in winter, beautiful area. I'm just going to keep rattling off the comments. There might be a few Sabe around there, but you're in Dogman country in mid-Texas. Really? So that's 2 mentions of Dogman. Another one. A wife's friend, who is a pharmacy manager, seen a huge one northwest of San Antonio along the highway between Austin and Waco to the west. Many old reported encounters of Dogman-type creatures attacking a ranch. No shit, so that's kind of like where I am. And just for a side note, you guys, I am in the heart of what would be called high fence hunting ranches, and they're huge. These places are huge. But it's amazing, you see zebras, gemsbuck, eland, bushbuck, blackbuck, impala, everything. It's crazy. And you think of the food source around here for something that might have ended up here, coming here from somewhere we do not know about, and needing some food. There's nothing but food for miles and miles and miles. But we've been driving a lot of fence, and there's a little seed in my head is have me keep an eye on the fence. There's no bends, no marks, no impacts on the top of the fence from anything that I've seen. Not that they need to, but I'm just note taken, right? All right, keep going here. My intro to Bigfoot was in 1976 in Thelma, Texas. My teacher came to school crying, told her class a Bigfoot killed her dog, wrecked the chicken coop, and stole her pig. I was like, what's a Bigfoot? She was very upset, and the girls in class were crying too. Adults really didn't explain much to kids back then, just a small country school, and she was almost hysterical. It scared the whole class, and I've never forgotten. Cheers, Steve. Holy shit. That's a little alarming, isn't it? And again, everybody else in that community doesn't get to know the truth. Didn't get to know, and probably still doesn't get to know. Up Highway 281 near Hicko on the Leon River, a buddy of mine was chased out of his favorite fishing spot by a juvenile. He turned white when I showed him the How to Hunt channel. Another comment. Well, so glad you've come to our fine state. I live outside Seguin, Texas, about an hour south of Austin. Our land was virgin forest in sand hills. There was a wet tank pond about 400 yards from our house. So, now looking back, I have no problem believing our children when they tell their encounters. Our two girls tell of a black hairy creature in their closet, watching them in the middle of the night, and then disappeared. They were young. That's really alarming, and unfortunately, it's a pattern, not the closet, but it's a pattern having these things inside homes, looking at kids, looking at people sleeping. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it is that's doing that. I'm just saying it's a pattern. My son came running out of the back of the woods when he saw a big black monster in the woods. I saw lights in the canopy of a big oak tree, and this all happened about 30 to 40 years ago. Another one. Hey neighbor, I'm in Seguin. Hope I'm pronouncing it right, you guys. And we hear the sandhills and Guadalupe River may hold clans of the hairy people. Come on down to Schultz Eyes Saloon and I'll buy you around. I wish I could, but you know what? If I went to all the offers to buy me around, my liver would probably spill out of me. Very kind. Everybody's so kind here. Comment from Brandon O'Neill. Hey guys, I'm also from Seguin, off of 467 and Elm Creek, and this is my story. I had a howl/yell experience in a Guadalupe County. Never saw anything, but years later I connected the dots and also found out about other reports from the area, which is about an hour southeast from Austin. Crazy. It was 1 a.m. in the morning, and it woke me and my dog up from a dead sleep. We both jumped up. I could feel the vibration in my chest. It was as loud as a train horn, and it lasted probably 4 minutes. We went outside and listened to it. Haven't heard it since. Just that one night back in 2012. I've been living here since 2010. I've also seen an orb on my property which disappeared when I drove up to it. Another one. Brandon. Again, we had orbs out in the Sand Hills, Hickory Forest area back in the early 80s. Yolanda Ramos. Welcome to Texas. Born and raised in San Antonio, retired to New Orleans, Louisiana. A must visit to Lost Maple State Natural Park, Vanderpool, Texas. I had an encounter there. I was with my 5-year-old daughter, my 10-year-old son, and my mother. It is difficult for me to talk about it still to this day. My son is now 50. Well, if you want to talk about it further, you're at the right place. And if not, that's fine too, all right? I'm just glad you're here learning from everyone. That's important. Lee's Lens commented, welcome to Texas Hill Country. I'm in Llano County, 1 hour north of Austin. All of the beings you speak of live and or migrate through the area. There's a place called Enchanted Rock near a ranch I used to live on. I had some strange and scary life-changing encounters over a course of about 2 years. Stay safe, Steve. Tell us all about it when you get a chance, all right? Here comes some wind. Quick side note, our friend, I don't remember Rusty's last name. Super guy, he's pretty tight buddies with Ted Nugent. I can see why. They're both very similar. Entertaining, fun, happy, good people. But anyway, he was mentioning last night about how many cave systems are around here and how big and how many miles some of these cave systems are. Side note, all around here, caves. Dorothy Metcalf said there are lots of things out west of Austin. Round Rock has Hairy Man Road for a reason. Also, sightings out in Manor, which is east side of town. Also, more southwest, you have the Devil's Backbone, which runs between east of San Marcos to south of Blanco. Plenty of sightings from ghosts to Dogman and Bigfoot. Marble Falls has the legend of the Bear Man. Wow, this place is rich in stuff going on, isn't it? I didn't know. Well, I knew about the Big Thicket. And what else? Everybody says, yeah, West Texas, right? West Texas. Here's another comment from somebody else. Patrick said, there is a road in or near Austin called Hairy Man Road. Devil's Backbone. You read my story years ago. My dogs were pissing themselves at something below the house in the woods. It roared at us. Everything went quiet. Susie Daw said, back in the early 90s, while delivering a tempt hopper trailer of feed to a farm, we were slowly making our way down a dirt road to his place, and about 100 feet in front of us, a big chupacabra crossed the road and looked at us approaching it as it crossed. It was not a dog, and we saw it too clearly. Dude J5 said, I'm between Comfort and Caryville, Texas. I hope you enjoy your time here. Big turkeys are out everywhere here. I've heard of a few dogman encounters in the area, but I haven't seen anything strange. I lived in Northern California for about a year near the Klamath River, right below the Oregon border. I believe the forest people are there for sure. Oh, they're there. Or they can be there at times. I've seen their faces in pictures I took southeast of Conroe, Texas. And my cousin and I had rocks thrown at us as we rode our dirt bikes through the... Oh, you guys have corrected me on this lots of times. Uchita? Shit, sorry you guys. National Forest in southeastern Oklahoma. Wachita? He had a cabin out there, and that happened a few times over one summer. I know I've been around them, seen plenty of structures, including a giant X made with 4 mature pines. But I've never seen them with my eyes. Bless you for having the courage to do what you're doing. You're helping more people than you know. Thank you, sir, and God bless you. Thank you, and God bless you too. Donna Pelletier? 200 miles of El Paso in February 1981, camping on the Chichuacha Desert. Don't laugh at my Spanish pronunciations, are you guys? I'm from Canada, on a small island. In Presidio, Texas, something huge came up behind our tent and stood there for a minute, and then it released its breath, which warmed the tent. Whoa. It stayed there for a moment, then it lumbered away. I was too young to think of paying attention to if it was bipedal or not. But I can tell you, the only animal I saw was a dead coyote stuck in a huge tumbleweed. Not even a rattlesnake. There weren't any ranches nearby, no cattle, no horses, and I can't say for sure, but knowing what I know today at 66 compared to what I didn't know at 21 leads me to believe that it could have very well been one of those big guys. Also, a year and a half ago, I was in Louisiana, and I took a bayou tour around Honey Island, which has documented sightings. Oh yeah, Honey Island. Cool. Cool place to check out. Sincerely, Donna from Rhode Island. Debbie Bliss said, Steve, I'm in the Lost Pines area, Bastrop County. Many sightings are said to be had in the areas. I personally feel that the pines hold many secrets. I am surrounded by the pines, and I have been scared many nights by strange feelings outdoors. I live off Highway 71 between Smithville and Bastrop. Here's another one, John Jesse. Howdy neighbor, I live in Bastrop near the HS. 2 times I've smelled that smell off of 290 and 696 about 4:30 in the morning on my way to work. Stay safe. Grace Chilcote in San Antonio, Texas, right out of my apartment front door. About 20 foot or less. It was a younger one looking in at the birds in the bush. 2 a.m. snack, I'm guessing. Joe Hamas. Hey, Hot Hunt family, I live in Temple, about an hour north of Austin. I've seen a dog man in a wildlife management area at Lake Stillhouse Hollow while fishing. He was stalking some hogs on all fours, and I'd say he was 4.5 to 5 feet at the ridge of his back and about 8 to 9 feet about to tail and thick. I was on a kayak about 100 yards from shore, and he saw me, showed his teeth, and kept walking like it was another Tuesday. I've heard loud howls that are not by a normal-sized dog, and they were deep and very drawn out. That's creepier than shit. D.D. Harrison said, I have land in the Texas Hill Country. While living at another property, probably not far from where you are, I had something beating on my cabin on several occasions. I put up a game camera, but never could catch anything. There was a sighting at the time, only 8 miles away. Enjoy your trip. Fall is a better time to visit. The bugs are gone, LOL. Yeah, the bugs are crazy where I was, behind the ranch house. I don't get it, and here I am, and everything's fine. Filmer of Bobcats said, Steve, you really should see the big thicket in East Texas. It's full of carnivorous plants, mushrooms, at every size and color. And Sasquatch. There's a gray one that was spotted from time to time. It's not surprising, as this would be ideal habitat. There have also been a lot of sightings in the Sam Houston National Forest in Huntsville, Texas. Wolf Seeker said, I'm in southwest of Austin by Canyon Lake. My daughter saw a sabe. My wife saw a man dog. And I've heard the wood knocks. I'll need to write in our experiences. My other daughter saw something else that looked like a man rabbit with red eyes, but swore the upright ears were not ears but horns. We have a 30-acre ranch as our backyard. That sounds creepier than shit. Leopold said, hi, I live in San Antonio, Texas. Regarding Sabe, I've seen isolated reports in the internet around Bandera, Lost Maples Park, and South Bexar County. The reports mentioned unusual wooden stands and maybe footprints. No repeated sightings, to my knowledge. Other people may know more. You know, these friends of ours here, they said they can't stand driving into San Antonio. They were talking about it last night because they said vehicles are getting stolen like crazy. I'm like, what? You kidding me? Like, nope. I go, aren't you guys allowed to shoot thieves around here? And he's like, yep. Aren't the thieves getting shot? He goes, not enough of them. Oh boy. Ricardo Guerra. Most of the encounters happen in the eastern and upper northern part of Texas. Not so much in central Texas, though. I've heard of a few. Welcome to Texas, Steve. And thank you for that warm welcome, but it's sounding like they're all over the state. Jody Zamet. My friend had a dogman experience while camping in a tent beside the Clarence River in northern New South Wales, Australia, just outside the town of Maclean. She and her partner had argued, and he'd gone into town in the only car, leaving her alone for the night. What a douche. She'd been inside the tent, and in anticipation of his return, she had been maintaining the fire as she waited. She saw a silhouette through the tent. It was backlit by the fire. It was a huge being on 2 feet with a dog's head. She was so terrified that she stayed silent and frozen until long after it moved away. She did not leave the tent all night. After that, letting the fire die out. And her partner did not return until the next morning. She was traumatized, and they left immediately. That guy needs an ass whooping, period. Jim Long said, I'm a retired forester, worked all my career in Louisiana, East Texas, and Southern Arkansas, from Beaumont, Texas to Fort Smith, Arkansas, and east to the Mississippi River. Cruising timber, marking trees, and laying out timber tracks for loggers. I'm not even sure how many times I've seen them. 7, 8 visuals, numerous knocks, whoops, etc., footprints, kill boxes, ambush sites, just to name a few. What's a kill box? If you're still listening, man, Jim, shoot me an email one time if you get a chance. I want to hear about it. A lot of people do, actually. Jason Lane said, I'm about 3 hours north of Palo Pinto County. In the fall of 2016, while walking my dog, I heard what everyone talks about. The chest vibrating howl. The weirdest thing I've ever heard. Everyone I told about it said it was probably this or that animal. But here's the thing. While I've camped my entire life from a young age, my father started work as a zookeeper the day I was born. So I've been around all kinds of animals from all over the world my entire life. About a week later, a friend was over and we heard it again. He looks at me wide-eyed and says, "What was that?" And I said, "That is what I was talking about." Never heard it again. So if it was a local animal, people have bison, cattle, of course, donkeys. Wouldn't I have heard it again? Or if it was something horsing around with a mic and a loudspeaker, maybe it was migrating. Jason Lane, I'm down south and west of Palo Pinto at 60 miles and also heard that long howl. Okay, got it. I can't pronounce this. Dominus Fessit. Welcome to Texas, Steve. Thank you. But yes, just northwest of where you're at, about 100 miles, my wife and I were bow hunting. Had my wife in a tripod stand filming while I was trying to rattle in a big buck I'd seen the day before. Down in a river bottom, it was getting near dusk. The deer feeder had gone off, and not even any wild birds showed up for the small pieces of grain from the feeder, and it was eerie quiet. Was in the air that evening. So it didn't just feel right to me, so I went and told my wife, let's go. I went up the hillside about a half a mile and I told my wife to sit in the truck. And I was going to sit up in the brush about 40 yards from another stand. Excuse me. Well, I made it in there and it was near dark and I heard a bunch of coyotes down from where I was previously hunting and rattling. Then all of a sudden, when the most hair-raising howling started and the coyotes went dead quiet, this howling, screaming, and howling lasted for about 8 seconds. And needless to say, when it started, my 45 APC was out and my bow was in my sling in record time, LOL. But it was about 400 yards from my wife in the truck. I was backing out up the side of the hill until I could see my truck, and then walking pretty fast to my truck. And I got to my door, opening the door, my wife said, "What the F was that howling, screaming?" I told her I had no idea, but it was time to get out of there. A few days later, a friend of mine showed me a picture of this footprint in a drying mud puddle. It is about 13 inches long and, and 4 inches wide with claws about 3 inches long and 4 toes, with drag marks on the side of the left foot. What? Said he could barely make out a right foot about 3 or so feet from the other one. Didn't see it or anything since then. Been hunting there for 2 years since then and taken a couple of nice bucks. On one of those days, I did get a really strong wet dog mixed with something dead smelling, but lasted about an hour. Kind of made me a bit on edge, but killed my big buck that evening and was field dressing it after dark. Anyway, you asked if anyone had an experience in the area. This was mine and my wife's. Like I said, I'd never seen it, but damn sure heard it loud and clear. I think it was a possible dog man. I still hunt out there. My wife refuses to go back out there with me. I bow hunt still, but always have a sidearm on my side at least. Be safe out there, my man. Thanks for sending that, or commenting with that. Deborah Hernandez. Yes, I saw my first Bigfoot in Fort Davis, Texas, in the Davis Mountains, and it was this year. It was all black, long hair. I was four-wheeling when I noticed it behind me by a tree. It moved as we moved our ATV. It moved as we moved away, if that makes sense. It pretended to be part of the tree it was standing in front of. I couldn't sleep for a couple months, and I'm still having a hard time. No doubt, Deborah. Damn. You just keep listening to all the people here, right? And it should help you in some way. Obviously, right? And don't be scared to talk about it out loud in your community. You know, try anyway. David Vaquelin? You know I'm pronouncing these Spanish names wrong, right? And I apologize. Hello, Steve. I live in southern Louisiana. I've been watching you for about 4 years. I don't even know, to be honest. Thanks for coming out with the camouflage hats with material on the backs of them, and I'm sure you will re-up with the How to Hunt shirts. I seen a Sasquatch in my backyard. He looked like a black shadow. I couldn't see his face, but it was a positive experience, and I talked to them, but they don't talk back yet. Probably in another 5 years. It's from learning from you, other channels, and being in a group. And Dogman are watching me also. The good ones. There's good and bad ones. Both follow me through portals. What? Wherever I go? They're the real good ones. Come out with smaller print. How to Hunt stickers. Thanks for you, your animals, and your wife, Sarah. Thanks. All right, man. Melanie. Brenham, Texas here. I think my brother already told you about his encounter in Fisher, Texas, where his 2 big dogs were shaking, peeing themselves, and cowering under his home. The thing that scared them was approaching from miles away, coming through the Canyon Lake area. At first, my brother heard dogs barking frenziedly from miles away. Then the people's dogs started barking closer and closer to his home. And as it passed through his highly wooded neighborhood, there was dead quiet. Bugs, no birds, nothing but his cowering dogs. And it was evening, so Stephen couldn't see anything outside. Then the dogs further in the neighborhoods past his home were barking and falling quiet as it passed on. Stephen said the hair on the back of his neck stood up while he was traveling through his area. Then the barking was further and further away. Ugh. Wind. Wind blast. Quick side note, last night, climbing bed, and apparently my buddy got pinched by a scorpion here last year in the woodpile. I grabbed a piece of firewood. And apparently there's tarantulas around here. Give me a tent in the ground and grizzly bears around all night long. I don't give a shit. Just keep the frickin' spiders away from me. So I'm laying in bed last night and I could feel something. Just half asleep, feel something like down my leg. I'm like, huh? Then you're thinking, oh, it's probably just your leg hairs or something, you know what I mean, for having socks on all day or whatever. Run around the woods, and then I'm kind of half asleep trying to ignore it, trying to see if there's a pattern to it, like it's really alive. And I feel something else again. I'm like, then I'm starting to get a little more awake. And then I feel it again. I'm like, all right, something's alive down there. And I reached down, went like this, and it was big, but it was in between the bed, the bed sheet, and it was on the outside of the bed sheet between the bed sheet, the next blanket. And I grabbed it and went, shit, squeezed, and we're talking pop. Whoa, threw everything off of me on the floor. Unfolded some kind of a beetle about that big. I guess he must have made it in on my hunting clothes or something. Blah. Creepy, right? Oh, his picture was the ass of a tarantula exploding as I squished it. Ugh. Anyway. Ongoing Awakening commented with, I grew up south of Dallas, Fort Worth. Been there too. Watched the cattle go down the road at the stockyards. We had experiences my entire life. I think my brother had quite a relationship with a family of locals. They visited him for 20 years or better, till he moved to the Pacific Northwest, where we both live now. What? Write us about it sometime. For some of the knowledge that came with those visits anyway, you know what I mean? We want the knowledge. Simon Says commented, Marble Falls outside of Austin, Texas. I bought property there 2 years ago. It's only 15 acres and about to start building this summer. I'm in New Braunfels, Texas now, running a ranch, 229 acres. I'm selling my ranch and fully retiring this summer to Marble Falls. And I have seen many things on my current property where I live and on the property I bought in Marble Falls. Plenty of witnesses besides myself. Like me, no one wants 15 minutes of fame, so we don't talk about it. except with each other. Like you. If you don't choose to believe me, that's all right, but we can't talk anymore. I'm not the one who lets you call me a liar and expect to be friends or even be on the same property. So, I just don't get into what I've seen or experienced. This comment is not usual. Just thought I'd contribute a little. Take care. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you, Simon. You want to share some of that shit with me sometime in the future, let her rip. I'm all about hearing, alright? Or reading, anyway. Ron Buckner. Welcome to my world, Steve. I am in easy chair in San Antonio, and I've had a couple of experiences since moving down here from the cold, wet Washington. I wrote you with 3 separate moments I had by Mount St. Helens, and you read 2 of them. I do believe I was marked by them because the 2 times down here, they actually warned me so I wouldn't be afraid. I was with Boy Scouts up in the woods by Caraville, southwest of you. I felt like they knew me. If I was alone, they might have even conversed with me. How they might have known me? I think their connection to the spirit world is deeper than we know. I don't do woods much anymore, but I will talk to them from time to time, and I live in the city, but they hear me. Crazy. All right. There you go. That was all comments from all of you Texans under that video. Now you're sure to have been heard by many that don't read the comment section. Who's next? Got an email titled Knowledge. Steve, I'm going through my memories. Hey Steve, this is, I'll just say it's Greg. Hope all is well with you and your family. This is the 3rd time I've written you. I was looking for answers. Why I had some of these people would follow me around for a week and then have one scream at me at 40 yards and scare me off the mountain over near a bumping lake in 1991. So now I have way more answers about me and the Sabe people. So my experience began back in the early 70s. My parents bought a cabin in the mountains of southwest Skagit County. I had my first experience in 1975. I was told by an old man named Will. While I was at the landfill shooting rats, there was tens of thousands of them. Will was guarding the landfill from illegal dumping. And at night, he lived in a travel trailer up in the mountains watching logging equipment. Anyway, he told me not to go behind the landfill in the swamps. He said it was dangerous back there. So being a teenager, I did what he told me not to do. So I followed the creek about a mile, back into the base of a small mountain. Then, as I was moving through the swamp, I jumped 2 creatures. One was very close, the other about 50 yards away, so when they reached the edge of the swamp, I could still hear them. Then I heard a popping sound, then everything went dead silent and I never heard a sound. That goes on a shelf, that note. I've had this popping sound happen 4 times. The silence thing I have had happen many times. So I believe these creatures are using this to move away from you. Now about my friend Will. He let me shoot rats for the rest of the summer. The next spring we went up to the lake. The landfill was all covered up and locked up. They moved over about 8 miles away in no man's land at first. Okay, no punctuation. No biggie. I'll try to make it smooth. At first we were told it was because there was a grizzly bear, so that was that. Another year came and went to the new landfill and meet a much younger man. He too didn't have a problem with me shooting the rats. I went there a few times, and one time I asked about Will. He told me Will had moved to a different state. Then he proceeded to tell me the story about Will. Apparently he came up to the shack one morning to do his job, and there were 3 Sasquatch in the dump eating rats. One stood up and bit a rat in 2. We all laughed. Nobody believed him. I really don't know where to begin. I've had so many encounters with these creatures. Okay, quick side note. Could you imagine somebody waking up in the morning? What should I Oh, I just need so much attention. I think maybe I'll make up a story that I saw 3 Sasquatch and 1 bit of rat in half. That's what my brain's going to tell my mouth to say this morning. Really? Said no one. I've had mind speak used on me many times. Mind speak starts with the pressure in your gut. If they don't like what you're doing, you start to feel like you're being watched. Onto where they take control of you and turn you around. My worst case of this happened up in the Cultist Mountains of Skagit County, where I was working graveyard at Boeing, so on Friday morning I would grab some beer and go up as high as I can to a spot where I'd been there many times. So I get to my spot, park, jump out of my truck, took 4 steps and was turned around face down to the ground. Huh? Took 4 steps and was turned around face down to the ground, back in my truck and driving away. Got about 200 yards away, I stopped and said, "What the F just happened? What did I just read?" So back in the 80s, my dad and I built a pile driver and started building docks. So I was up there all the time. A lot of times he didn't need me, so I would hike sometimes all day. There was one time I lost 2 hours in the woods. I can't remember anything. It's just I felt weird, and I knew I was late because the sun was farther than it should have been when I was supposed to be back at 2 to go home. I had to get there till 4. I believe I've been tagged by these creatures. I moved up there in early 93 to 99, and this is when most of my encounters happened because I was out in the field almost every day, totally unarmed. But I did have a 17-inch Bowie knife. Have you ever heard of these creatures setting up an area for juveniles? They clear out all predators and protect the deer. All the areas where these beings have ample deer populations on the road are clear of predators. I know an area would hike along the ridge of a mountain. First 3/4 of the hike, there was bears everywhere. You couldn't take a step without seeing a pile of bear crap. Then, when I got closer to home, the piles disappeared like somebody made a line. This area is right across the street from the cabin. The trail home is where I have had many feelings of being watched. This one's going to be difficult to believe. It's also the reason I feel I have been tagged. I used to take a daily hike down the street from the cabin. I'd take the same trail that was down by the old landfill, so I would go in, I would hear a fawn in distress, so I would hike up the embankment, look around, and nothing. Then it was down across the road. Then another one up. Then another one of them up at 5 at one time, making these sounds. This happened almost every time I was there. I could bring people there, and they would put on a show sometimes, following me around in different areas, and doing the call. I have so many things that have happened up there. I will say I've been close to them. So close to them they could have grabbed me right then. I was growled at crossing a bridge from the road. It was about 6 feet down to the creek. The growl came from about my waist. So that put that guy at about 8 to 9 feet. And I'm 6'3". I think they enjoy scaring me. I've also had 2 following me down a creek drainage, whistling to each other. The bottom line is, these people are not going to hurt you unless you do something to them. I'm living proof. If you want to come and check out the area, I'm only 2 to 3 hours from you. Thanks for all you do in the subject, Greg. Wow. Sounds like they like hanging around you for some weird reason, Greg. And I'm good. I got them in my own backyard. Thanks for the invite. Oh, here's another one. Mark, this is red. Title, I've been having trouble sleeping. Have I read this? Hello, my name is Deborah Hernandez. You can share my name. I left a comment on your Texas adventure recently, but I decided to email you. Okay, sorry. My boyfriend and I were on an ATV in Fort Davis, Texas, exploring on his land in the Davis Mountains. And as we're leaving the area of exploration, I turned to look behind me, and there it was. Yeah, we read this, but I'll read your email. Long black hair as thick as a tree, about 8 feet tall. Honestly, he looked like a teen. As we reversed to leave, it stood there, slowly moving his body with us. As we turned to go forward. Wind. Its head in the trees. Its body almost directly in front of the tree. A few days before this, I saw it looking in the kitchen window, I thought, you're hallucinating, sister, but I saw it standing in the moonlight. So after I saw it in daylight, well, I was shocked. I couldn't sleep for months. I was actually jumping out of bed in my sleep. Felt much better. I'm not jumping out of the bed, literally, anymore. I'm still having a hard time sleeping, but it's getting better too. Thank you for letting us share. I'm hoping it helps me get rest. Your Texas friends, Debbie and Andy. Hope it helps too, Debbie. That sucks. It's a shitty sentence. I've been suffering from no sleep for a week. Being tired sucks. Not getting proper sleep is real shitty, especially at home and there's no excuse not to sleep, right? Okay, I'm going to read one more and I'm going to get going and go wake up my buddy. I know he's sleeping because he started falling asleep on the ground when we were hunting earlier. Bigfoot encounter. Steve, thank you for standing your ground when it comes to encounters with Bigfoot. You have created an excellent platform for us to share our experiences. I reported my encounter originally to that BRO, but instead was shot down by an investigator. More on that later. My father and I had an encounter with a Bigfoot in 1974 while hunting along the Mississippi River in northeast Iowa. Also, there was my dad's friend. My dad and his friend were Korean War Army veterans. I never saw either of those two men scared. They were excellent woodsmen and were just plain tough guys, but also they were gentlemen. One night we were raccoon hunting along the Mississippi River in late October. No leaves on the trees and all the ground vegetation was gone. The access to this property was difficult to get to. It was impossible to access the bluffs from the top as it was very steep and the brush was too thick. Plus, we had to cut through a farmer's corn or a soybean field, which was hard to do. We would instead access the wooded bluffs from below. We'd park our truck by the railroad tracks along the river and walk down until we came to a small ravine or cut on the bluff. The dogs could climb up there, and there were plenty of raccoons for us to shoot. This particular property was owned by an old farmer and his wife, and it had been in his family since the 1830s. It consisted of heavily wooded bluffs. On top of the bluffs were different crop fields. Several types of nut trees populated the timber, along with cedar trees. I remember sliding down the bluffs after retrieving a dead raccoon, and there were walnuts, acorns, and butternuts everywhere. We never saw many deer, I think because of the steepness of the bluff. Also, what was very interesting was the limestone caves we would come across. Some you could see had some depth to them, others were a good spot to get out of the rain. Back in the 16 or 1700s, this area was mined for lead by French explorers. One particular night, we entered a cut about 1.5 miles north of where we parked our truck. Along the way, a freight train passed us. This was particularly longer walk than we usually did. The cut between two bluffs that we found was more of a washout with large limestone rocks and fallen trees strewn across the rocks. It was like a giant staircase, so we decided to set the dogs loose to see what they could find. Normally it didn't take long for our two dogs to get the scent on a raccoon, and they were always excited to hunt. This time, the dogs were hesitant to go into the woods, and we never seen this behavior before. My dad's friend walked into the woods, hoping the dogs would follow him. The dogs cautiously walked behind him the whole time, looking up and to the left of us. It was very dark, about 11 p.m. with no moon. We never hunted during a full moon because the raccoons seemed to stay put. Oh, that's weird. My job was to handle the flashlight, which was a 4D cell flashlight. It wasn't like the flashlights they make today, but did the job. And after entering the woods about 20 yards in, we stopped on a large limestone rock, planning our next move. The dogs were still apprehensive and hadn't taken off after a raccoon yet. And our next move was to climb up another limestone rock about 7 feet above us. We made the dogs climb up the sides, and they did with ease. And once on top of the next limestone rock, we stopped and listened to the sounds in the woods. It was quiet. And I remember my dad's friend saying, this spot might just be dead. And I remember my dad, getting out a cigarette, and as soon as he lit a cigarette, the dogs growled at something again to our left. The female dog started up the hill with the male following. And after the dogs made it 10 feet from us, they yelped. And the next thing I saw them do was beeline it back down the hill. All of us turned to watch in disbelief as the dogs ran away from us in fear. The next event has been branded into my brain since the night it happened. We heard a huge crack, like a tree branch breaking, but much, much louder, followed by a bone-shaking growl, kind of like someone was saying, "Hey, It echoed right where we stood. My dad's friend grabbed the flashlight from my hand and shined it from where the sound came from. At about 50 yards up the hill, there stood a dark brown, hairy creature, at least 8 feet tall with enormous shoulders. The creature was standing next to an oak tree holding a 10-foot branch. It tossed the branch, which I remember looked like a small log, parallel to where we were standing. Then turned away from us and with one step, walked over some limestone rocks and went behind a large clump of cedar trees. My dad and his friend said nothing, but they both shouldered their rifles. My dad's friend handed me the flashlight and told me to keep it shined up where we saw this thing. I kept asking my dad what it was that we saw. I couldn't comprehend what just happened, but I didn't get scared because my dad and his friend weren't scared. Really. We climbed back down the rocks the whole time, my dad and his friend taking turns covering us. When we got down to the bottom of the bluff, we stopped and shined the flashlight back up where we came from, but we could hear something walking. You could hear the sound of the crunching leaves, and it was moving uphill, we thought. We never saw it or heard it again. We walked quickly back to the truck, afraid that a train would come along and run over the dogs. I remember asking a couple of times, what was it we saw? My dad and his friend never said anything other than we need to get back to the truck. When we got back to the truck, the dogs were nowhere to be found. My dad took off his hunting jacket and laid it on the ground, hoping the dogs would be there in the morning. This had worked before. We drove up to the farmer's house and saw that he was sleeping, so we went home for the night. And the next morning, my dad got a call from his friend, and the dogs were found in the farmer's barn. We drove out to the farm, met my dad's friend there along with the farmer. My dad told me to stay in the truck with the dogs. They went in and talked to this farmer for over an hour, and I was never told what they talked about until later. My dad died when I was 18. It seemed like every time we went hunting before he died, I would bring up that night at least once. He'd always say he didn't know what that was. I didn't know anything about Bigfoot, and I never heard any stories about them being in this part of the country. After my dad passed away, I ran into his friend while home on leave from the U.S. Navy. I asked him if he remembered that night and what it was we saw. What he said convinced me we saw a Bigfoot. He went on to explain that this farmer knew there were Bigfoot using the Mississippi River as a corridor to migrate north and south depending on the time of year. The farmer told my dad and his friend that he had not seen Bigfoot in quite a few years. He had first started seeing them after the railroad tracks were built along the Mississippi River in the 40s. They seemed peaceful and curious, and the farmer knew they liked the limestone bluffs that could shield them from the weather. There were tons of nuts up there, and the farmer said they liked to eat corn but never touched soybeans. The farmer said depending on the weather they would stay around his property for a week or so. Crazy. Years later, I contacted that website and explained my story to an investigator I contacted, and he first seemed curious and asked me to see if I could access the property, and if he could access the property and take pictures. Oh, if you could, okay. I went out there and found the farm property still being farmed, but the house is abandoned, which wasn't uncommon. I walked down the tracks and found the spot where we entered the woods that night. And it was September, and the leaves were on the trees, along with much of the undergrowth still there. And as I climbed up the limestone rocks, I found several limestone caves. I took pictures and drew a map and made a couple pages of notes. I sent this all to the investigator and never heard a word back from him. And needless to say, it made me doubt what happened that night, but I couldn't understand why. I was ignored. I do remember him doubting that farmer's theory that Bigfoot migrate. And I basically forgot about this incident, never told anyone about this because my dad said we would be laughed at. I saw your YouTube videos and it sparked my interest again. I gained confidence and replayed the events over and over in my head. Each time I would remember more details. I know you don't read too many... What? I know you don't read too many encounters from the Midwest. Excuse me, but please feel free to read mine, as everything I attest to is true. Thank you and stay safe, John. I absolutely believe you, John. And I super appreciate that long chunk of time of your life you just donated here to everybody to share that knowledge. Very appreciative of that. And there you go. Listen to all those members of the club. Telling the truth of being while being in the real world, right? There you go. This place is riddled with caves. Side note. Cavernous area. I'm not into caves. Our friend Rusty was explaining going into those caves, some of these caves, throughout his lifetime, and explaining how to get through. And he said, actually, he was saying last night, he was going through one cave that went in forever with friends and had flashlights, and he said he was crawling to a space about that big, and it was wide. He said it was about that deep, and crawling through, and he wasn't the first one in. The first one that gets in where it opened up again, all the bats would stampede and fly out, and he said he was stuck in there like this, and all these bats going screaming by him in this little narrow open slice in the cave. That'd be a little nerve-wracking, wouldn't it? Anyway, there you go, you guys. More voices heard. So what are we gonna do now? We're gonna go back to the main ranch. We're on somebody else's ranch. Probably eat some breakfast, have some coffee, get this done, load it up, and I don't know, I think we're going to this auction at 1 o'clock or something today. And I asked him last night, I go, how long does this thing go on? Till, and they go, anywhere from 1 in the afternoon until 2 in the morning. I'm like, roger that. Anyway, there you go. End of the emails. Quick note. We were listening to the radio this morning and everyone was just talking about the Pope dying. The Pope died. I looked at my buddy and I just said to him, I go, I thought everybody kind of somewhat worshipped God and Jesus. What made all these hundreds of thousands of people worship a human being? I don't get that part. Honest question. If asking that question offends you, you're a psychopath as far as I'm concerned. But seriously, how in the world did hundreds of thousands of people worship a dude like that? I don't get it. Maybe somebody could explain it to me so I do understand. But I do not understand. Honest question. I also said to my buddy, we're driving along, and I go, you know, because they're talking about a couple hundred or 400,000 people being there for his funeral, whatever they're doing for him. And I remember I said to my buddy this morning, I go, you know, I wouldn't mind asking some of those people exactly what this guy did for them the past handful of years. For real. I'd like to ask one person, what did this guy do for you the past few years? I'm curious, honest question, just an innocent person being curious. You know what I mean? I've met some great people in my lifetime, and I've seen a lot of absolute great people come here. What is it that makes it okay for human beings to absolutely worship one human being like that? I don't get it. If that offends you, get yourself checked. Anyway, appreciate all of you. Every one of you. Man, I love the real people in the real world. I love them. And I especially thank all the people in Texas for welcoming me here. Very kind. Very, very kind. It makes me feel really good. Anyway, enough babbling. I'm gonna go. Maybe I should go sneak up to the pickup. He's up there a few hundred yards and scare the shit out of him. Maybe I won't. Maybe I will. We'll see. I might be back tomorrow, but maybe not. I think we're driving 12 hours tomorrow back to Alabama, then I fly out on Tuesday, so we'll see. Share my story at howtohunt.com. All you Texans that are harboring a lot of real good knowledge from the real world for all the real people here, if you get time, write her down and send it in, all right? You really want to hear it. Talk to you guys later.